I never believed the world could be this quiet. Not until I woke to the sound of ice groaning beneath me. The noise was low and endless, like the growl of some massive animal just under the surface. When I opened my eyes, there was no tent ceiling above, only a gray sky, soft and blank as smoke. My sleeping bag was soaked through. My left leg was half frozen inside the ice. For a few seconds I didn't understand. Then memory came back in shards. The research vessel, the storm, the cracking shelf. The feeling of weightlessness. The splash. The cold. Now there was only ice, floating and breaking. I sat up slowly, fighting the dizziness that came from being half frozen and half awake. The wind had quieted, which made the silence worse. In every direction, white and gray, the ocean was a flat metal mirror, mottled by flows of broken ice. Somewhere far off, I could hear the distant roll of the sea, and, if I listened harder, a faint engine hum. The ship? I tried to stand, but my boot was stuck fast. The ice had refrozen during the night, sealing me in place like a fossil. I took my ice axe and chipped at it until the sound of steel on ice was the only heartbeat I had left. My foot came free with a snap and I almost fell over. The iceberg was smaller than I remembered. Maybe 50 meters across, maybe less. A floating plateau of ridges and fractures, sloping toward the sea. Every few seconds it gave a slow, deep crack, like a side.it was still melting. My name is Elias Grayson, field geologist for the Barrow Ice Shelf Expedition, or what's left of it. We were supposed to study calving patterns and sea level melt ratios for the season. A straightforward mission, until the storm rolled in 3 nights ago. I remember standing on the starboard deck, wind screaming, visibility down to 0. The captain shouting that the shelf was breaking faster than predicted. I'd gone out to secure one of the sensor rigs when the world simply broke apart. The line snapped, ice, ship, and sky all blended into one violent blur. Then I was falling, the sound of the sea filling everything. That was, I don't know how long ago. The watch on my wrist had frozen solid at 02:13. I scanned the horizon again. No ship, no movement, just the endless shifting gray. The first rule of survival: assess and ration. I did a quick inventory. 1 half frozen pack. Some gear might be salvageable. 2 protein bars. Both soaked. A small thermos. Empty. My multi-tool. A flare gun with 1 cartridge. Not much. Not nearly enough. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the thermos. I forced myself to breathe slow. You've got hours, maybe a day. You can't panic yet. The iceberg shifted beneath me, a slow, nauseating roll. Somewhere underneath, something massive cracked. A new fissure split across the surface just 10 meters away, opening like a wound. I needed higher ground. I climbed to the central ridge, where the ice rose into jagged ridges like frozen dunes. The view was both magnificent and hopeless. A cold horizon stretching forever, the sea slowly gnawing at the edges of my drifting home. The sky had that pale, sickly light that meant the storm hadn't really ended. Only paused. I found a broken chunk of the sensor rig embedded in the ice. The metal was twisted but still recognizable. Our expedition's logo, half peeled away by the salt wind. It meant the iceberg had sheared right off the shelf we'd been studying. That also meant it could drift for days. Or break apart in hours. By noon, I'd managed to set up a small area near the ridge as camp. I wrung out my sleeping bag, spread it to dry, and checked the edges of the iceberg again. The waterline was frighteningly close. Every few minutes, another sliver of ice would fall into the ocean with a splash. The sound echoed, then was swallowed by the wind. There's something about this kind of silence that feels wrong. It's not peace, it's pressure. You start to hear your own body making noise. The creak of your joints, the blood in your ears, the sound of your breath turning to frost. By the second hour, I caught myself talking aloud just to make it stop. All right, Elias, I said to no one. Step 1, stay warm. Step 2, stay sane. My voice sounded strange, too loud against the AI. At some point, I noticed movement on the edge of the ice. Just a flicker, a shape that made my heart jump. I scrambled toward it, nearly slipping on the slick surface. For a moment I thought it was a seal, maybe even a person. But it was only a piece of tarp, flapping like a ghost. One of ours, maybe torn from the ship. I tied it around a splintered pole to make a windbreak. The smell hit me as I did, salt, metal, and something sour, almost organic. Like something old trapped in the ice had started to rot. I tried to ignore it, but it lingered in the air, thick and strange. By evening, the fog rolled and that's when the sound started. At first it was just the groaning, the low, steady sound of the iceberg flexing in the current. But as night fell, the tone changed. The cracks echoed like footsteps. The surface hissed as water seeped through thin fractures and refroze in bursts. Every sound became a threat. When I finally lay down, I realized my sleeping bag had started freezing to the ice. The damp cloth hardened around me, and for a moment, I couldn't move. I panicked, thrashing, gasping in the dark. Took minutes to tear myself free. My breath came out in great white clouds that I almost fired the flare. Just to break the dark. But I didn't. Not yet. If the ship was anywhere nearby, I'd need that light when it mattered. The next thing I knew, I was dreaming. The end. Except it wasn't a dream, not exactly. I was standing on the ship again. The deck was empty, the sky blood orange. I could see the ice shelf in the distance, cracked open like a skull. The crew was gone. The air smelled of rust and ozone. Then the deck began to tilt. The sea rose up like a wall, swallowing everything in one slow motion. I reached out, but my hand was already iced. I woke screaming. The iceberg had tilted nearly 10 degrees during the night. My pack was sliding toward the edge, spilling what little I had left. I scrambled to grab it before it fell into the sea. The ocean was different now, darker, restless. The hum I'd heard earlier was gone. Nothing but wind and my own heartbeat. I checked my thermos. The few ice chips I'd packed in had melted into half a cup of brackish water. I sipped it slowly, tasting the salt. Every swallow hurt. The day passed in pieces. The light never changed much, always that dull gray, like a bruise. I kept busy hacking at the ice, shaping crude trenches so the meltwater wouldn't pool under me. The work kept me from thinking too much. But every time I paused, the silence came back. The longer I was alone, the more it felt aware. Once, while crouched near the edge, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A faint tapping, rhythmic, from beneath the ice. Like something moving under there, trying to get out. I told myself it was just air pockets collapsing. Ice fractures, pressure shifts. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was answering me. That night, I stayed awake. By hour 30, I began to lose track of time entirely. Hunger hit hard, a physical ache that made my whole body pulse. I chewed half a protein bar, forcing it down my dry throat. The iceberg was smaller now. I could see the cracks joining, a web of fractures like veins. The center ridge, my camp, was beginning to slant. If it broke apart now, I'd go with it. I stood at the highest point and fired the flare. The red light arced into the fog, hissing, painting the ice in blood color. For a few seconds, I could see everything. The cracks, the mist, my own shadow stretching long across the melting field. Then it burned out. The darkness returned heavier than before. No ship. No answer. Only the hiss of water and the sound of my own heartbeat echoing through the ice. That was when I realized I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of disappearing. The sea would take the iceberg. The iceberg would take me. By the time anyone found this place, there would be nothing left. Not even a name. I pressed my gloved hand into the ice, hard, until I felt the sting of the cold through the fabric. You're still here, I told myself. You're still real. But the voice that answered in my head didn't sound like mine anymore. The sea is never still. Even when it looks calm, it moves underneath, slow, patient, endless. And now I can feel it moving through me too. The iceberg has thinned. I can tell by the sound. It's a strange thing. When you spend this long listening to ice, you start to hear its moods. The thick slabs moan deep and steady. The weak ones hiss like snakes. The section under my camp is hissing now. The cracks multiply every time I shift my weight. I tried to mark them earlier with bits of tarp, but there are too many. My whole world is coming apart, one fracture at a time. I can't stop shaking. It's not just the cold anymore. It's something else. A nervous vibration under the skin, like my body's trying to warn me before my mind catches up. The morning light, if you can call it that, came weak and pale. The fog had lifted just enough for me to see the horizon, a faint silver line in every direction. No ship, no birds, no sound but the constant whisper of water that I needed a plan. If I stayed put, the iceberg would eventually dissolve under me. If I tried to swim, the cold would kill me in minutes. The only chance, if there was one, would be another ice floe nearby, something I could jump to if the current brought it close. But the current moves how it wants. I remembered something from training. Stay with the ice. Don't fight the drift. The ocean always decides. The thought should have comforted me. It didn't. By midday, the hunger was a physical thing, gnawing at the edges of reason. I forced myself to nibble the remaining half of my second bar. Little flakes of it stuck to my gloves. The taste made me nauseous. Like chewing wax, I tried melting more ice for water, but the salt concentration had risen. Every sip burned my throat. The more I drank, the thirstier I felt. That's when the hallucinations began. At first, it was just light reflections dancing wrong on the ice. Then I saw shapes in the fog. The outline of a person kneeling at the edge, hair whipping in the wind. I froze, staring. When the fog shifted, there was nothing there. Still, I found myself talking again, the words spilling out. Don't lose it, Elias. It's just tricks of the light. Just... A crack interrupted me. Sharp. Close. The ice under my boot split open in a jagged line that snaked toward the sea. I leapt back instinctively, heart hammering. The chunk I'd just been standing on tilted and slid away, vanishing into the water with a dull splash. The sound echoed like a gunshot. That I was alone again. Only now, there was less of the world left to stand on. As the day dragged on, the iceberg rotated with the current. I could tell because the sun, a dim gray disk, shifted to the opposite side. I used to love that light in the Arctic, that permanent twilight. Now it felt like a trap, a never-ending dusk that refused to let me rest. At some point, I noticed my fingers had gone numb beyond recovery. When I peeled back my glove, the skin was waxy and white. Frostbite, stage 1 at least. I rubbed them hard, trying to bring blood back. It only made them bleed. It's strange how quickly you stop caring about pain when it becomes constant. Later, while checking the edges for stability, I heard it again. That tapping sound from beneath the ice. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Tap, 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 pause, tap. It came from directly underfoot. I crouched, pressing my ear to the surface. The ice was thin there. I could hear the gurgle of seawater moving through fractures. But underneath that, something else. A hollow echo, like bubbles forming and collapsing in sequence. I told myself it was just the current. Just physics. But it didn't sound random. It sounded like knocking. I moved away fast, slipping on the wet surface. My breathing came hard, shallow. You're tired, I whispered. You're hearing things. That's all. But the sound continued, faint but certain. Like something under there wanted me to know it was alive. I retreated to what was left of my ridge and sat, staring into the fog. Time passed strangely. Every few minutes I thought I saw something move in the distance. A darker patch of ice, maybe, or the shadow of a larger floe. Once, I thought I saw the faint glint of metal. I fired my second flare. The red light burst upward, staining the mist crimson. For a moment, I saw what I thought was another iceberg. Massive, jagged, maybe 100 meters away. Hope flared with the light. Then the wind shifted, and it was gone. Just fog. The flare sizzled out, leaving me blind again. The world has shrunk to about 30 square meters of ice. I measured it with my own steps, just to feel like I was doing something. The cracks keep growing, threading toward each other like veins under glass. I can hear the water lapping directly beneath now. The iceberg is hollowing out. Every sound vibrates through it like a drum. Sleep comes in fragments, 10 minutes here, 5 there. Every time I close my eyes, I see the faces of my crew. I see them on the deck, staring at me as the ship fades into the fog. Their mouths move, but I can't hear what they're saying. Sometimes I wonder if they're even real anymore. When I wake again, the fog is gone. The sky is a clean, cutting blue, and the sun glares off the ice like fire. The sudden brightness hurts. I have to squint just to see that. That's when I notice something new. Open water. A stretch of dark sea only a few meters away, clear of slush. It looks wrong, too still, like a mirror that I kneel beside it, staring at my reflection. My face looks different. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, beard stiff with frost. There's salt crusting my lashes. My lips are cracked open in a way that almost looks like a grin. That I dip the thermos into the water, hoping for something fresher beneath the surface layer. When I lift it, I see small flecks of black inside, soot or maybe sediment. Then I notice the smell. Not salt, not sea. Something organic. Rotting. I drop the thermos and stumble back, gagging. The stench rises stronger, drifting across the ice. It's coming from the water, from beneath the iceberg. I try to tell myself it's a dead fish, or a seal, but the smell is too human. The sun climbs higher. I feel it burning my face even as the wind freezes my hands. The world feels both too hot and too cold at once. I can't think straight anymore. The tapping starts again. Louder, closer. Tap, 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 tap. I can feel the vibration through my boots now. I drop to my knees, press my palm to the ice. The cold shoots up my arm like electricity. And then the ice moves. Not much, just a small pulse, as if something large had shifted beneath it. The crack beside me widens an inch. Water spurts up through it, spraying across my gloves. I stumble back, heart hammering. Something massive rolls under the surface. A dark shape, gone before I can focus on it. The water churns, then goes still again. I don't move for a long time. I just stand there watching the hole, waiting for another sign. But nothing comes. When I finally breathe again, I realize tears are freezing on my cheeks. By the time the sun dips toward the horizon, the iceberg is barely holding together. I can hear water sloshing in the hollow underneath, like the echo of a heartbeat. The tapping has stopped. The silence is worse. My mind starts to drift in strange directions. I find myself thinking about warmth, not heat, but the memory of it. My mother's kitchen when I was a kid. The smell of coffee. The click of a lighter. The tiny, normal noises that mean you're alive. It feels obscene to remember them now. I start laughing. I don't even know why. The sound comes out cracked, half sob, half choke. It echoes off the ice like someone else is laughing with me. I stop immediately. There's no one here. But the echo doesn't stop when I do. The next few hours blur together. I try to build a signal, a tower of ice and gear, but it keeps collapsing. The iceberg lists more every hour. The cold has gone past feeling now. It's a weight pressing on every joint. At one point I think I hear the thrum of an engine again, far out in the fog. I climb to the highest point, waving my arms, screaming until my throat rips. No answer. When the sound fades, I know it wasn't real. Just the sea shifting. Just hope, pretending to be rescued. I crawl back to my camp and lie there, watching the stars appear, faint and cold above the endless horizon. They look close enough to touch. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, because I wake to darkness and motion. The iceberg is breaking apart beneath me. The sound is deafening, cracking, groaning, splashing water. I scramble up, slipping, grabbing my pack. A fracture splits right through the middle of my camp, dividing it in two. The smaller half slides away into the sea. I'm left on a piece no bigger than a truck bed. The water is boiling with fragments of ice, each one glinting in the moonlight. I can see the ocean beneath now, dark, endless, waiting. There's no time to think. I lash what's left of my pack to my chest and crouch low, trying to balance. Every tilt feels like the last. Somewhere in the chaos, I hear that tapping again, faint, far below. Except this time, I realize it's not coming from beneath. It's coming from inside my head. I don't remember how long I knelt there, listening to the sea grind away the edges of what little world I had left. It might have been an hour. It might have been a few minutes. Time doesn't work right anymore. All I know is that the ice beneath me has stopped sounding like ice. Now it sounds like a clock. Ticking, cracking, counting down. When the first wave hit, I almost didn't react in time. The water surged over the ice like a living thing, snatching my pack from beside me. I dove for it, fingers closing around one of the straps as the wave dragged it toward the sea. The impact nearly took me with it. I held on. Somehow. When the water receded, the pack was half torn open. My multi-tool was gone. The thermos too. All that remained were soggy scraps of food wrapper and my frozen gloves. The loss hit harder than I expected. Not because of the gear that was already failing, but because it meant I had nothing left to do. Survival had always been about tasks. If you had work, you had hope. Now there was nothing to fix, nothing to plan. Only the waiting. The iceberg rocked again. Another section cracked and folded into the water with a thunderous splash. Spray hit my face, sharp as needles. The piece I was on tipped violently, then steadied. Every time it moved, I could feel the ocean's pulse through it. A low vibration that made my bones hum. It felt like being balanced on the chest of something enormous, something breathing beneath me. By hour 47, I had stopped feeling my toes. The numbness had spread halfway up my calves. I knew what that meant. Circulation gone, tissue dying. But there wasn't a damn thing I could do. I tried slapping my legs to force blood flow. Nothing. Just dull thuds. Still here, I whispered. Still here. The sound of my voice startled me. It felt foreign, thin, as if it belonged to someone standing behind me. I turned around. Of course, there was no one there. But for the first time, I wanted there to be. The horizon began to shimmer. Not with light, with movement. It started small, just a flicker in the corner of my eye. Then it spread, the whole sky trembling like a reflection in disturbed water. The stars above twisted, bent, doubled. At first, I thought it was a mirage, a heat shimmer caused by exhaustion. But the air was cold enough to burn skin. The distortion grew until the world itself looked warped. The line between sea and sky disappeared. Everything became one flat, endless gray. That's when the noise began at a low hum. So deep it felt like it came from inside my skull. It wasn't the ocean. It wasn't the wind. It was everywhere. I pressed my palms over my ears, but the sound stayed. It wasn't something you heard. It was something you felt. I shouted, just to hear my own voice, but the sound vanished in the hum. For a moment I thought I'd gone deaf. Then I realized I could still hear the ice groaning beneath me, faint and distant. The hum didn't stop. It filled every gap between other noises, like static behind a weak signal. I thought about the ship's radio, the one we'd used to communicate during the expedition. The same kind of hum had come through once, right before the storm hit. I joked then that it sounded like the world's heartbeat. Now it sounded like a countdown. I needed distraction. Anything to keep from sinking into that noise. I forced myself to move, crawling toward the nearest ridge. Half the ice I crossed was paper thin. Flexing under my weight to the far edge, I found a new crack that hadn't been there before. A black slit opening into the sea. The water below looked impossibly dark, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. I could see faint motion below the surface. Not fish, just the current dragging small chunks of ice down into the deep. Then I saw something else. A faint glimmer, silver and shifting. Maybe 10 meters down. It looked like metal. I leaned closer, squinting through the rippling surface. The light moved again, round, almost like a port window. For one dizzy second, I thought it was the ship. Our ship. The Kestrel. Then the light blinked out. Gone. I don't know how long I stayed staring at that black water. Long enough for my mind to twist it into whatever I needed it to be. Salvation, madness, maybe both. The hum fades, leaving only ringing silence. The iceberg is smaller than ever now, maybe 10 meters across. The surface is slick, every edge sweating meltwater. I've tied myself to a protruding ice hook with what's left of a torn strap, just to keep from slipping off if I pass out. The air is so cold that every breath feels like swallowing glass. I can't stop thinking about warmth again. My brain drifts to memories I haven't touched in years. A motel room after a desert job. Cheap heater rattling. The smell of dust and coffee. A woman's voice, low and kind. I can't remember her name. Then nothing. It's strange how the mind starts cataloging life like inventory when it knows the end's close. I don't know when I start talking aloud again. It just happens. Like my voice has its own momentum. You're fine, Elias. You've been through worse. Lie. Someone's coming. They have to be. Lie. You can swim if it breaks. You can. I stop because I know how that ends. Cold kills faster than drowning. I die before I got 10 meters. The truth is, all I can do now is wait. Wait for the sea to take what it wants. And that's when I realize what real horror is. It isn't dying. It's being forced to watch yourself disappear. The world goes strangely beautiful after that. Colors start to bloom where there shouldn't be any. Blues within blues, faint streaks of green under the ice. Aurora light, maybe, or just brain misfire. The sea glows faintly. The air sparkles. Everything feels too sharp, too vivid. I start laughing again. Soft, small. It echoes strangely in the open air, and for a heartbeat, I think someone laughs back. Then the iceberg lurches. A piece the size of a car breaks away beneath me. I fall, half submerged, before I claw my way back onto the main section. The shock of freezing water tears the air from my lungs. I cough, gasping, every nerve screaming. The cold hits harder than pain. It erases you. I can't feel my hands anymore. My vision tunnels. The hum returns. This time it's different. Pulses in rhythm with the sea. The whole world seems to vibrate with it. I can't tell if it's real or just my heartbeat slowing down. Then I hear another sound inside the hum. Faint. Like a voice buried under static. I freeze. It's saying something. Words too broken to understand. I strain to listen. The voice fades, then comes back, distorted, like through a radio half buried in snow. Elias, hold on. My chest tightens. Sounds like Captain Moretti. The last voice I heard before the shelf broke. I look around wildly, searching the horizon for a ship, a flare, anything, nothing but fog. Where are you? I shout. My throat burns. Where the hell are you? The hum swells, drowning the voice completely. Then silence. I collapse against the ice, shaking uncontrollably. Whether from cold or fear, I don't know. Somewhere deep inside, I know the truth. That voice wasn't real. The captain's been gone for hours, maybe days. But I can't let go of it. Because if I do, there's nothing left to hold onto. So I lie there, eyes closed, pretending I can still hear the ship's engines. Pretending the ocean's roar is something human. Pretending I'm not already halfway gone. When I open my eyes again, the world is wrong. The sea and sky have traded places. The stars swim beneath the ice, while the waves roll silently overhead. My breath fogs downward. For a moment, I think I've fallen through and am looking up from below. But my body is still dry, still shaking on the surface. It's not real. None of it's real. The last thing I see before everything fades is a small sliver of light far on the horizon. Steady, golden, too warm to belong here. Maybe a ship's lantern. Maybe the sun through a crack in my dying brain. I crawl toward it anyway. Every movement cracks the ice beneath me. Each sound a countdown. The hum returns one last time, louder than ever. Then, for the first time since the storm, there's silence, total, impossible silence. And in that silence, I hear one final thought. My own voice, small and certain. You made it this far. Then the ice gives way. The first thing I feel is not the cold. It's the silence breaking. A thin crack gives way beneath me, and the world folds inward. 1 second there's ice under my palms. The next there's only the sky above, turning end over end. Then impact. Water hitting me like concrete. Every nerve screaming awake. The cold doesn't bite. It erases. My breath locks inside my chest. Trapped. Useless. Instinct tells me to kick, to claw, to find up from down. But the black water turns direction into fiction. Something heavy. My pack. Drags me sideways. I let it go. It slides off, disappearing into the dark with a soundless tug. Then I see light. A faint, silver haze above me. The surface. I swim for it. Arms numb, legs sluggish. Every stroke feels slower than thought. My lungs convulse, demanding air, but I push once more, twice. Then I break through. Air explodes from me in a sound that's half shout, half sob. The cold wind sears my throat like acid. I gasp again and again, coughing water, my body refusing to believe it's alive. The iceberg, or what's left of it, is a scattering of white shards, none larger than a dining table. The one I was on is gone completely. I paddle toward the nearest chunk, fingers clawing at smooth, wet ice. It takes everything I have to haul myself half out of the water, belly pressed flat against it. My clothes are heavy as chains. For a long time, I can't move. I just breathe raw, ragged, each breath a victory. The cold seeps in deeper than before. There's a point where you stop feeling freezing as pain and start feeling it as weight. Like the sea has crawled inside your bones and settled there. I try to keep my mind working. Checklist. Always a checklist. Stay above water. Find stability. Conserve heat. What's left of it. I roll onto my back and stare at the sky. The stars are gone again, swallowed by cloud. The horizon glows faintly green where aurora curtains ripple, silent and distant. For a moment, I think they're curtains of fire. I imagine their warmth, tricking my brain into thinking I can feel it on my skin. It helps for about 10 seconds. The sea has changed texture. The waves aren't violent. They're slow, rolling swells that lift me, lower me, lull me towards sleep. That's the danger. Sleep means stillness, and stillness means death. I slap my face, hard enough to sting. Stay awake, I whisper. The words puff into mist that freezes on my collar. I need to get higher. Another chunk of ice drifts nearby, thicker than mine. I wait for the swell to bring it close, then crawl toward it, bridging the gap with a desperate lunge. My soaked parka catches on an edge. For a second, I'm hanging halfway in the water again. I grunt, pull, and flop across the top like a seal. The new platform is maybe 3 meters across. Solid enough for now. I lie there, panting, staring at the faint glow of the aurora reflected in the waves. The light ripples through the ice beneath me, turning it green, then blue, then clear again. It's beautiful. It's wrong that something so deadly can look so gentle. Time fractures. Sometimes I'm awake. Sometimes I'm somewhere else entirely. I see fragments of warmth, fragments of color. A memory surfaces. Me and Moretti, 2 summers ago, drinking instant coffee on the deck of the Kestrel. He's laughing about nothing, the morning sun bouncing off the sea. Then the image dissolves. The ocean is black again. My hand is bleeding where it scraped the ice. Not yet, I mumble. Not done. My own voice is thick and slurred. I sound drunk. Maybe I am hypothermia drunk. I know the symptoms. I used to lecture students about them. Uncontrollable shivering, confusion, paradoxical warmth, loss of coordination. I tick them off mentally. I'm already 3 for 4. At some point the wind changes direction. The air sharpens, cutting through layers of frozen fabric. I curl into myself, trying to trap the little heat left between my chest and knees. The sea around me hisses as new frost forms on its surface, spreading in fractal webs. I watch it creep outward, fascinated, until I realize it's creeping onto my iceberg too. Sealing it, stiffening it, making the edges brittle. I press a palm to the ice. Beneath the fresh crust, I can hear it again. That deep, pulsing groan. It's not the same rhythmic tapping from before. This is slower, almost calm. A heartbeat. Not mine. The sound rises, then fades, in sync with the roll of the sea. I know it's physics, water compressing under ice, but my mind twists it into something else. The breath of the planet itself. I whisper to it. I hear you. The whisper seems to echo. I tell myself it's the wind bouncing off the ice, but I hear it again. A faint reply, shaped almost like words. Hear you? The sound slides across the surface, vanishing before I can be sure. Loneliness does strange things. It turns echo into company, silence into dialogue. I let it happen. Keep me awake. I say to the voice that isn't there. Just until morning. No answer. But the groaning ice continues, steady and rhythmic. It's enough. I drift in and out of consciousness, half dreaming. The fog has returned, thicker than ever, rolling across the sea in ghostly sheets. It clings to the surface, erasing the horizon. My iceberg drifts with it, creaking softly. Sometimes I think I see shadows in the mist, towering shapes that move against the light. Icebergs, maybe, or ships, or just the edges of sleep trying to drag me under that I whisper names into the fog. Moretti, Julia, my sister back home in Anchorage, but the mist swallows them all. When I blink, frost has sealed my eyelashes together that I tear them apart, and tiny shards of ice scatter down my cheeks like glittering dust. The world tilts again. A low boom shakes the water somewhere nearby. A chunk of the fog parts, revealing a darker mass ahead. For one wild heartbeat, I think it's land. Then the shape shifts. A massive iceberg, taller than any I've seen yet, rolling in the current like a sleeping giant. Its cliffs glow faintly green under the aurora that it's moving toward me. Slow, unstoppable that I scramble upright, legs barely obeying. The cold has stiffened them into blocks. I can't swim anymore. I can only crawl. The giant iceberg looms closer, the water between us narrowing. If I can reach it, if I can climb it, maybe there's a chance that I wait for the next swell and push off my small raft. The distance closes. 10 meters. 5 that my arms burn. My body feels heavier than stone. Then the swell drops, and the two chunks of ice slam together with a sound like thunder that I jam my hand between them, trying to hook onto a ridge. Pain shoots up my arm. Maybe I've broken a finger, but I don't let go. I drag myself up the slick face, kicking, slipping, clawing for grip. One boot catches a foothold. I push. Another. Then I'm over the edge, sprawled on a plateau of solid ice, gasping. The smaller raft shatters behind me and vanishes. I'm alive again. Barely. The new iceberg is huge, maybe 100 meters across, rough and jagged like a frozen mountain. Cracks web its surface, glowing faintly under the aurora. I pull myself inland, away from the edges, until I find a shallow depression shielded from the wind. I collapse there, face pressed to the ice, too weak to even shiver. The stars above swirl slowly through fog. The hum returns, distant this time, like a lullaby that I realize, dimly, that I'm crying. The tears freeze before they reach my chin. Just a little longer, I whisper. Just till morning. The aurora flares brighter, rippling green and violet across the sky. Then everything goes white. When I wake, I'm still breathing. That surprises me more than anything. The sky has softened to gray. Dawn, real dawn. The first I've seen in what feels like weeks. The fog is gone. The sea is calm. Somewhere, far off, a gull cries. The sound breaks something open in me. I sit up, every joint stiff, and scan the horizon. There, small, dark, impossible to mistake. A ship. Not close, but there. I try to stand. My legs refuse. I crawl instead, dragging myself toward the edge, waving one arm in jerky, desperate arcs. My voice is gone. All I can make are hoarse croaks. But the ship keeps moving, a black silhouette against the brightening sky that I don't know if they can see me. I don't know if it's even real. All I know is that I'm still here, still on the ice, still alive. At first, the ship doesn't seem to move at all. It just hangs there on the horizon, black against the gray, a promise the size of a fingernail. Then the light shifts and I see the slow crawl of its wake. It's moving east, away from me. Hey! My voice breaks on the first shout, nothing but air. I try again, louder until it's just a rasp. The sound vanishes into the wind. For a heartbeat, I consider firing my flare. Then remember I already used them both. All I have left is the useless flare gun, heavy and empty in my pocket, that I wave anyway. I wave until my arm feels like it's gonna come off. No change. The ship keeps sliding across the horizon. Steady and indifferent, I force myself to breathe slow. Panic wastes heat, wastes air, wastes what's left of the body. Think Elias. There's a system to everything. If they're moving east, they'll pass behind that ridge of ice in a few minutes. I need height before they vanish. The ridge is 20 meters away, a low spine running across the iceberg's center. Every step toward it feels like crossing glass. The surface moans under my boots. I move anyway, using the broken handle of my axe as a cane. Halfway up, I lose my footing and slide back, scraping my palms raw. The cold numbs it almost instantly. I crawl the rest of the way. From the top, the view opens. A sweep of sea, a gray dawn sky, the ship halfway to gone. I cup my hands around my mouth. Here. Over here. Nothing. Then, faintly, I think I see motion on the deck. A figure maybe, small as a pinhead, turning toward me. I wave again. Frantic, desperate, my throat burning with each ragged cry. And then nothing. The ship glides behind the ridge of mist and is gone. I stay kneeling there for a long time, staring at the empty water. It's strange. The body can only cry for so long before it just stops. The tears freeze, and what's left is something quieter, heavier. I tell myself it's still out there, maybe circling back. I tell myself they saw me. The lie keeps my heart beating for another few minutes. The wind picks up again by mid-morning, tearing through the fog and slicing across the surface. My fingers no longer listen to commands. The gloves are stiff, the fabric welded to the wounds beneath. I tear open one glove with my teeth, trying to flex life back into the fingers. The nails are black. The skin underneath is gray. I laugh once, short and ugly. Good work, Doc. Textbook case study. My voice sounds older. I start talking just to fill the silence, narrating every move like I'm teaching a class again. Subject: male, mid-30s, exhibits early signs of frostbite and hypothermia. Cognitive function deteriorating but still capable of sarcasm. Prognosis: pending miracle. The sound keeps me company. Hours pass or minutes. I stop checking. The sky brightens, then dims again, the day cycling through shades of steel. The iceberg is melting faster now. Streams of water run down its sides in silver veins, pooling at the base before spilling into the sea. The whole thing feels alive. Exhaling, I find a shallow cavity near the ridge and crawl inside. It smells of salt and old air. The wind is weaker here. The quiet almost hurts. That's when I hear the ping, soft, metallic, out of place. At first I think it's another hallucination, the auditory kind that comes when your body's running on fumes. But it comes again, clearer this time. A high, electronic chirp. A beacon. I dig through my pockets, mind scrambling. Every piece of gear is either frozen or ruined. The locator beacon, our emergency transponder, was in my pack when I lost it. So what the hell am I hearing? I crawl out of the cavity and follow the sound. It repeats every few seconds, faint but steady. Ping, ping, ping. It's coming from the far side of the iceberg. I move faster than I should, half sliding down the slope. My boots skid on the meltwater, and twice I almost go over the edge. The noise gets louder. At the base of a tall, slanted ridge, I see it, something wedged between slabs of ice. A fragment of metal, about the size of a briefcase. One of the research pods. It must have broken free when the shelf collapsed, drifted out here with me. Its signal light blinks weakly behind a crust of frost. I drop to my knees and scrape at it with numb fingers. The casing is cracked, but the small transmitter inside still pulses. Still alive. I whisper, grinning through chattering teeth. You beautiful piece of junk. If the pod's working, it means the beacon might be broadcasting to anyone scanning this sector. I pry open the panel, using the handle of my axe as a lever. Inside, wet circuitry, a broken battery, and the faint red blink of a transmitter still doing its job. The screen is dead, but the LED flash rhythm tells me the code. Mayday, automatic distress. I stare at it like it's holy. Then I remember. The signal won't reach far unless it's above water level. The pod's half submerged in melt runoff. I lift it out, cradling it against my chest, and climb back toward the ridge. Every step drains the last energy from my legs. When I reach the top, I wedge the pod into a hollow and prop it with chunks of ice. Higher ground, I mutter. You scream into the void. I'll wait for an answer. The LED keeps blinking. Ping. Ping. I sit beside it, back against the ridge, and watch the horizon and ship. No plane. Only the whisper of the wind. The sun has started its slow dip, staining the ice with pale gold. The light makes everything look softer, like the world has decided to forgive me for existing. I talk to the beacon. Don't quit on me now. I tell it, you're doing great. The blinking slows for a moment, then steadies. I laugh again, weaker this time. The fatigue creeps up like a tide. My thoughts drift between sense and dream. Sometimes I see the ship again on the horizon. Sometimes I see my sister's porch light back in Anchorage, warm and yellow. The brain doesn't care what's real when it's dying. It just wants company. The hum returns so low I feel it more than hear it. This time it doesn't scare me. It feels like an answer, a reply from the deep. The ice groans in rhythm with it, a slow heartbeat I can lean against. I close my eyes. Maybe they'll find me. Maybe not. Either way, I think someone will find the beacon. Someone will know I was here. I reach out and press my gloved finger to the transmitter light. The pulse thrums through the frozen fabric, faint and steady. Ping, ping. The last sound I remember before sleep is the echo of that rhythm merging with my own pulse, until I can't tell which is which. The sun slips behind the clouds again and takes the warmth with it. Within minutes, the air turns from gold to iron. The beacon keeps flashing. Each pulse lights up the ice around it for a heartbeat. Tiny, red, alive. Ping, pause. Ping. I start counting the seconds between flashes. The rhythm is hypnotic, a lullaby built from desperation. Wind builds out of nowhere, a crawling whisper that becomes a roar. The fog comes with it, rolling low, thicker than smoke. My world shrinks to a red light and a few meters of ice. The sea begins to move again, the gentle rocking turning into a restless heave. The beacon slides once, almost topples. I grab it and wedge it deeper into its hollow. My fingers no longer have skin. The gloves are stiff, dark patches where blood froze hours ago. Stay put, I tell the beacon. You and me, we ride this out. The wind doesn't care. It starts snowing. Dry, powdery flakes that blow sideways more than down. They sting my face and melt in my beard. Visibility drops to nothing. I build what shelter I can. A shallow wall of snow packed against the ridge. It isn't much, but it gives me a pocket of still air where the beacon's light can keep flashing without being buried. I crawl inside and curl up, knees to chest, the way they taught us in training. Conserve heat, protect the core. But the body has its own logic. It shakes until the shaking burns away energy, then stops shaking altogether. That's when the warmth comes. Paradoxical. Treacherous. It creeps through my chest like a slow tide, fooling me into thinking the storm's easing. I drift. I see a coastline. White cliffs, sunlit water, birds tracing arcs through blue sky. My sister waves from the shore, calling my name. Elias, you made it. I know it's wrong even as I run toward her. My boots leave no prints. The sea beyond the cliffs is the same color as the sky, gray folding into gray. She reaches for me. Her hand is warm. Then the beacon's ping cuts through the dream, sharp as a nail in wood. The world folds back to ice, to cold, to the sting of reality. I laugh. A cracked sound. Not yet, Jenny. Not yet. The wind finds a new voice. It moans through the cracks in the ridge, a long, rising wail. At first it's just noise. Then it starts forming patterns, half-words, almost sentences. Hold on. I bury my face in my arms, telling myself it's the storm using the ridge as a flute. But the words keep shaping themselves, getting clearer. Not alone. I look up. Nothing but blowing snow. Who's there? The wind howls in reply, louder now, stripping the question from my lips. The next gust almost tears the beacon from its hollow. I dive for it, shielding it with my body. When the gust passes, I stay there, wrapped around that faint, blinking light like it's a heartbeat I can borrow. The storm plateaus, a steady roar. I can't tell if it's night or day anymore. The sky is a single shade of ash. The beacon's rhythm slows. Maybe the battery's dying, or maybe I'm missing flashes between blinks. Either way, the intervals stretch until each one feels like a minute. Ping. Wait. Ping. I start counting again out loud to keep track of the seconds. Keeps me awake. At 43 I lose count and start over. The ice shifts under me with a sound like thunder muffled in wool. The ridge splits another few centimeters. Water wells up, then freezes in place. I crawl to the edge and look down. The sea below is chaos. waves colliding, sheets of ice slamming together and breaking apart. My little plateau drifts through it, carried somewhere I can't name. For the first time, I think about direction. South means open water and shipping lanes. North means death by cold. Which way am I going? The compass on my wrist is fogged. The needle locked. It doesn't matter. The current has its own map. When exhaustion finally wins, I don't fall asleep so much as collapse into another layer of waking that I dream in sound. The creak of the ship's hull, Moretti laughing, the clatter of mugs in the galley. "Grayson," he says, voice warm, steady. "You out there giving lectures to the whales again?" I try to answer, but my jaw won't move. Then he's closer, crouched beside me. His beard is rimed with frost. "Almost done, kid. Storm's passing. Just keep breathing." He presses something into my hand, a hot mug of coffee. I can feel the heat even through the glove. When I blink, it's gone. My hand is empty except for the frozen glove itself. I start to laugh again. But it turns into coughing. The storm drops without warning. One moment the wind screams. The next it's gone, leaving a silence so thick my ears ring. The sky clears in bands, stars appearing like holes punched through steel. The aurora is back. Green ribbons folding slow above the world. I push myself upright. The air's so still it feels fake. The beacon's still flashing. Slower, weaker, but flashing. "Ping." I whisper with it. "Here. Ping. Here." The rhythm keeps me tethered. I look up and see something moving across the sky. Not stars this time, but light, rhythmic, mechanical. Red, white, red. A helicopter. For a heartbeat, I think it's just the aurora playing tricks again. But then I hear it. A faint, distant thump of rotors. I lurch to my feet, nearly falling. My voice is shredded, but I scream anyway. I tear off a sleeve of my parka, wave it like a flag. The light passes overhead, dwindles, then steadies, circling once. They've seen me. They must have. The beacon flashes one more time, brighter than before, as if spending everything left. Ping. Then darkness. I keep waving even after the light disappears behind a curtain of cloud. The rotor sound fades to nothing. Maybe they marked the coordinates. Maybe they'll come back when the weather clears. Maybe. I sink to my knees beside the dead beacon. My hands are raw, my breath shallow, but somewhere under all the fatigue a new rhythm starts. The tiny, impossible beat of hope. I whisper to the silent transmitter, to the sea, to anyone listening. I'm still here. When I wake, it's not the cold that greets me first. It's the quiet. The storm has passed. The sea is calm, too calm, as if the world has paused to see what I'll do next. The light is gray, but it's daylight. I must have slept an hour, a minute, maybe more. The air tastes clean, stripped of salt and snow. For the first time in days, I can see the horizon again. And something's on it. First, I think it's another iceberg, a trick of shape and distance. But then it glints, metal catching light. I push myself upright. Every joint screams. The world tilts, but I stay standing. It's a ship. The same one, maybe, or another, smaller, closer. The hull is dark, almost black, with white letters I can't read from here. It's moving slow, cutting a path through scattered flows. My throat tightens. "Come on," I whisper. "Come on, see me." The beacon's dead, nothing left to broadcast. All I have now is movement. Visibility. I strip off the top half of my parka, exposing the orange liner underneath. It's the brightest thing I own. I wave it in the air over and over until my shoulder gives out. Nothing. Then, 2 short flashes from the ship's deck. Light signals. Once. Pause. Twice. They see me. I don't remember sitting down. But suddenly I'm on my knees, laughing so hard it hurts. The sound echoes over the water, raw and high. Then a deeper sound cuts through it. The rhythmic thump of rotors. A helicopter rises from the ship's deck, small and dark against the pale sky. It turns toward me. My mind refuses to believe it. After so much static and silence, reality feels like fiction. But it's real. It's real. The chopper draws closer, wind from its blades tearing small waves across the ice. I stumble to my feet and wave both arms, shouting until my lungs give out. The machine hovers 30 meters away, the downdraft hammering me flat. A figure leans out the open door, helmeted, strapped to the side, a bright orange line snaking from the harness. He gestures downward, then drops the rescue sling. That IT spins lazily in the wind, metal glinting. That I crawl toward it. The rotor wash is a storm by itself, blowing shards of ice against my face. The sling lands a few feet away, bouncing once. That my hands don't want to work, but I force them. I loop the strap around my chest, fumble with the clip until it clicks. The winch tightens. I rise, feet dragging across the ice. The world tilts again. My raft, my ridge, the dead beacon. All of it shrinking below as I'm lifted into the sky. The cold becomes background noise, replaced by the thrum of the blades and the taste of hydraulic oil in the air. The rescuer reaches for me, pulls me into the cabin, slams the door. The warmth hits like a slap. Someone's talking in my ear, English with a Scandinavian accent. "You're okay, we've got you. Stay with me." Hands remove my gloves, check my pulse, press an oxygen mask to my face. I try to speak, but the words come out wrong. 48 hours. I manage. I think. Maybe. The rescuer's eyes flick to his partner, unreadable behind the helmet visor. "He's conscious." Someone says. I close my eyes. When I open them again, the sound of the rotors is gone. I'm lying on a cot in a cramped cabin, everything vibrating with the hum of ship engines. Blankets cover me from neck to foot. A saline line runs into my arm. There's heat. Actual, blessed heat. A woman in a dark jacket sits beside me, clipboard in hand. "Elias Grayson?"
Inad, weekly, I'm Dr. Jansen.
"You're on the Arctica research vessel out of Tromsø. We picked up your distress signal about 12 hours ago. You were lucky. The beacon was almost dead." I try to smile. It did its job. She studies me a moment longer, pen poised. "You've been missing for 2 days. What happened?" I tell her. "Not everything. There's too much," and my voice keeps breaking. "But enough. The collapse. The drift. The storm." She listens, expression unreadable. When I finish, she nods once. "You're alive, that's what matters. Rest now." She adjusts the blanket and stands. "Wait," I say. "The others. Did you find?" Her eyes soften. "No survivors yet."
I'm sorry.
She leaves before I can answer. I stare at the ceiling, trying to feel grateful. I am, I think. But the relief is tangled with guilt, heavy as the blanket on my chest. The ship rocks gently, each motion familiar and strange. I listen to it, half expecting to hear the icebergs groan again beneath it. For a long time, I just breathe. Then I notice something. A faint, rhythmic sound. Ping. I turn my head toward the monitor beside my bed. It's the heart rate machine. Ping. Ping. The same rhythm. The same interval. I start to laugh again. Softly this time, until tears freeze at the corners of my eyes. The sound follows me into sleep. I wake to sunlight through the porthole. My skin burns where the frostbite is worst. But I'm still here. On the table beside my bed lies the beacon's casing, cracked and rusted. Someone salvaged it. A note rests on top of it, written in neat handwriting. "Recovered with you on extraction. Battery dead. Transmitter shorted. You're lucky it held as long as it did." I trace a finger over the words. The metal is cold, but not cruel. Outside, the horizon is endless and blue. Dr. Jansen returns with a cup of broth. "You should drink this." I take it. The heat moves through me like forgiveness. "Do you remember how long you were adrift?" she asks. 48 hours. I say. "Give or take." She studies me. "You said you heard things. Voices, maybe?" "Wind," I answer. "Just wind." She nods, but her eyes linger on me a moment longer. Then she smiles faintly. "You'll make a full recovery, Elias. Some frostbite, mild hypothermia, but you're stubborn. Always have been." When she leaves, I look back out the porthole. The iceberg that tried to kill me is just a pale smear on the horizon now, dissolving into mist. The sea swallows it without a sound. That night, I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on the ice, counting the seconds between pings, whispering to the wind. But there's one difference now. The silence doesn't scare me, it's just silence. And I've learned how to live with that. The ship rocks gently beneath me, but it feels wrong. Not wrong in the mechanical sense. The engines hum and the hull creaks like a living thing, but wrong in the way the world feels when it's too safe after danger. Every vibration reminds me of the ice shifting beneath my feet, the way the ridge broke, the snap of the floe under weight that I keep seeing it that I wake before dawn, even in a bed that's warm, blankets stacked like a fortress around me. The porthole shows the gray-blue expanse of Arctic water stretching forever, calm and deadly. They've given me clothes. Not the parka, not the gloves, not the boots caked in ice and blood. Real ones. I put them on, but every zipper, every strap, reminds me of the weight I carried on that ice that I walk the deck slowly. The sea looks soft, liquid under morning light. I can't trust it. One wrong step and I remember the cold, how it eats you alive before you even feel it. That I try to speak to the crew, but my words stick in my throat. Small talk feels impossible. They nod, polite, patient. No one mentions the iceberg. No one mentions the storm that I don't know if I can handle them saying IT breakfast. I pick at eggs and coffee. Dr. Jansen sits across from me. You're quiet, she says, stirring her tea. You survived. That's more than most manage. Most don't make it out of the water. I reply, voice rough. Or the ice. She doesn't flinch. You were lucky, Elias. That's all. Luck is part of survival. I nod, but inside a voice whispers. Luck isn't why I survived. I survived because I was stubborn, because I kept counting, because I refused to give in. Then there's the other voice, the one I tried to ignore in the storm. Somebody had to die for you to live. Why not me? I drop my gaze to the table. The coffee has cooled. I stir it, but it doesn't matter. The hallucinations haven't stopped that I hear the wind whisper at night, though the porthole is closed and the engines hum beneath me. Words, fragments, slip through. Hold on, not alone. Here. Sometimes I see shapes moving on the deck when I know no one is there. I follow them with my eyes, heart hammering, until they vanish. The crew thinks it's exhaustion. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's something else. A reminder that survival leaves scars the body can't see. I try to sleep during the day. The cabin feels safe, warm. But when I close my eyes, I'm back on the iceberg. The ridge splitting under me, water gushing in, the beacon flickering its last blink. That I see Jenny waving from the shore again. Only she isn't my sister. She's the wind, she's frost, she's every hallucination I've ever had. That I scream. A crew member knocks lightly on the door. Are you okay? Fine irasp. Just tired. He nods and leaves. At night, I walk the deck, alone. The sea stretches black under the stars. I try to feel normal. I try to push the hallucinations aside. Then I hear it, the ping. Not from a machine, not real, just the pulse of the beacon, deep in my chest, syncing with my heartbeat. I close my eyes. The iceberg is gone, but the rhythm remains. I want to tell someone. I want to scream, but the words get stuck. Instead, I pace, trying to burn off the fever inside my skull. 2 days into the journey back, I find the journal. I hadn't written in it during the storm, too afraid to touch paper with frozen fingers. Now it sits on the desk, open, untouched. I read the last lines I wrote before the beacon died. If I die here, let the ice remember me. Count the seconds, hold the light, survive until the end. No hallucinations, no mercy, just keep moving. Keep alive. I trace the words with my finger. My hands shake. I understand now. Survival isn't about luck. It's about obsession, focus, the willingness to outlast the ice, the wind, the hallucinations, even yourself. By the 5th day aboard, I speak again. Small words at first. Questions. Observations. The crew starts to talk with me. I see the relief in their eyes, like they've been waiting for me to accept that the iceberg isn't chasing me anymore. But I know better. It isn't gone. The ice is still there, somewhere, drifting. And it remembers me. Sometimes I wake at night, listening to the creak of the ship's hull, half expecting the split ridge, the crash of sheets of ice, the ping of the beacon still alive somewhere under the waves that I have nightmares of Moretti. The others, faces frozen in disbelief. I tell myself, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't anyone's. But the words echo hollow. One night, I stand on the deck under the northern lights, alone. The aurora stretches green and violet across the sky. The water is calm. The ship hums beneath my feet that I whisper to the lights, to the wind, to the sea. I survived. You don't get me again. For the first time, the hallucinations pause. The ping in my chest fades that I take a deep breath. It's still the Arctic. Still deadly. Still beautiful. Still a place that can kill in minutes. But I'm alive. And that's enough, for now. The ship rocks gently, but I can't feel it. I'm awake before dawn again, staring at the wall opposite the bed. The journal lies open beside me. The ink smudged from my shaking hands. I can't stop thinking about them. Moretti. The others. Their faces etched in frost. Frozen forever on my memory. I tell myself. I did everything I could. I survived. But the mind doesn't accept logic. At first, it's subtle. A shadow across the cabin. A shape in the corner that disappears when I blink. The sound of wind. Though the cabin is sealed, warm, and still. I wake screaming. Sweat matting my hair. My throat is raw. The crew comes in, gentle voices trying to calm me. It's okay, Elias. You're safe. Safe. I taste the word, but it's hollow. There's no such thing in the Arctic. Not in my memory. The hallucinations return with intensity. Sometimes it's the wind calling my name. Elias. Elias. Hold on. Not alone. Other times it's the sea. Waves folding into shapes. Ice shifting beneath my feet. I see the beacon flickering even though it's dead. Hear its ping echoing in my chest. Slower than my heartbeat. Reminding me I survived, but someone didn't. I start to talk to it. Whispering. I know. I'm here. I survived. Don't worry. The crew notices. They call it post-traumatic stress. I call it honoring them. Sleep is worse. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on the iceberg. The ridge splitting, water gushing, the storm screaming. I try to wake, but I can't. My body remembers everything the mind doesn't want to. I see Jenny again. Not my sister, but a figure shaped like her, smiling, beckoning. I know it's false, but my hands reach anyway. Desperate for warmth, for reassurance. I scream when my fingers touch only cold air. Doctor Jansen begins talking to me about therapy. Elias, we can help you process this. You can't carry it all alone. I nod. I rasp. But I don't want help. I want the iceberg. I want the ice that tried to kill me, the beacon, the wind that whispered lies and truths alike. I want to feel it all again. Because in that terror, I was alive. The guilt is relentless. I imagine the faces of the crew members I left behind, frozen on ice. I replay every decision, every step I took. If I had moved faster, if I had chosen differently, if I had anything. Some nights I wake screaming their names. Some nights I wake screaming my own. One evening, I climb to the deck alone. The aurora paints the sky violet and green. The ship hums beneath me. The sea is calm, but I see ice. I hear the crack of the ridge. I feel the pull of cold water beneath my feet. I whisper. I survived. I made it. You don't get me again. But the wind answers differently this time. Somebody had to die. The words curl around my mind, like smoke. I can't shake them. I start sleeping in short bursts. My hands shake. I count seconds again, not to survive this time, but to prove I can. Because if I stop counting, if I let the rhythm fade, the guilt will consume me. Ping. Wait. Ping. I see the beacon's faint red glow in the corner of the cabin. Dead. But it pulses in my chest, syncing with my heartbeat. I whisper to it. I'm here. I'm still here. I survived. The crew begins noticing the cracks. I don't speak much. My eyes drift. Shadows move in places no one else can see. They suggest therapy, rest, conversation. I refuse. I have the iceberg. I have the wind. I have the memory of 48 hours that changed me forever that I write in the journal again. Pages filled with the sounds, the ice, the storm, the beacon. Not to make sense of it, not to tell anyone, but to make it real. So I remember that I start dreaming in fragments. The ridge splitting, water gushing, the beacon pinging, Moretti's laugh, Jenny's hand waving. But sometimes, between the fragments, there's calm. I remember warmth, the helicopter, the ship, the blankets, the heat of the cabin. I clutch that memory. It is small, but it exists. I whisper to myself, to the ice, to anyone listening, I'm alive. I survived. You cannot take that from me. And for a moment, I believe it. The cabin is dark. I should be asleep. The ship hums gently beneath me. Outside, the Arctic night stretches black and empty. The aurora flickers faintly on the horizon. But I can't sleep. I hear the ping. Not a machine. Not my heartbeat. It's the beacon. Dead. Buried in ice. But alive in my chest. Calling. Accusing. Reminding. I sit up. The blankets cling to me. My hands shake so badly I can't hold the journal. Pages flutter in the draft from the porthole. You survived. Somebody didn't. Why not them? I stand, feet bare on the cold deck. The crew is asleep. The ship is quiet. And then I see it. The iceberg. No, not the iceberg. Not really. A shape, pale, jagged, immense, floating across the sea like a ghost. Its ridge cracks open, water gushing in torrents. Faces appear in the ice. Moretti, Jenny, others I can't name. I scream. They move toward me. Slow, inevitable, accusing. I stumble back. My hands grasp at air, at the railing, at anything solid. But nothing holds. The wind rises, whistles through the rigging. You survived. Why not them? I retreat to the cabin, slamming the door, heart hammering, pulse racing. I press my forehead to the wood, gasping for air. The hallucination follows. Ice fills the porthole, the ship tilts violently. Water floods the deck. My crew screams in the storm, but no one responds. I am alone. I clutch the journal like a lifeline. The pages are filled with numbers, with seconds counted. With fragments of reality, I can still hold on to. I whisper to them, I did everything I could. I survived. You know that. The iceberg splits. Water pours over the deck. Moretti's face, frozen, pressed to the ice. You could have saved us. I fall to my knees. My body shakes. My voice cracks. I couldn't. I did everything I could. The hallucination intensifies. I can feel the cold again. My skin pricks with frostbite. The deck under my feet is ice, slick and unstable. I run the length of the cabin, flipping switches, grabbing blankets, anything to assert reality. The ping, constant, from the beacon in my chest, from the ice, from the void. I scream until my throat bleeds. And then, a small sound pierces it all. A knock on the door. Gentle, human, real. Elias? You okay? Dr. Jansen's voice. Solid. Warm. I don't answer. I just collapse onto the floor. The hallucination doesn't vanish. Faces in the ice, water pouring, Moretti's accusing eyes. They remain. I hold the journal to my chest. Whisper. I survived. I survived. I survived. Step by step, I stand. Step by step, I open the door. She's there. Blanket in her hand. Calm. Real. Come on, she says. You're shaking. You need warmth. I let her guide me to the bed. Sit under the blankets. My body heaves. My chest burns. My hands shake violently. She doesn't ask what I saw. She doesn't judge. She only waits. I breathe. In and out. Counting. Counting seconds like I did on the iceberg. Only this time, the seconds are mine. Ping. Wait. Ping. I close my eyes. And for the first time, I don't see the iceberg. I don't see the faces. I don't hear the storm. I just feel my own heartbeat. Hours pass. I drift between sleep and wakefulness. The hallucinations weaken. The guilt remains, but it becomes quieter. A whisper instead of a scream, I write in the journal. I survived. I am alive. The ice cannot reach me anymore. The wind cannot take me. I will carry their memory, not their terror. I read it aloud. Words steady me. The aurora glows through the porthole. The Arctic night is still vast, still indifferent, still deadly. And I am still here. Morning comes. The ship sails through calm waters. The horizon is endless, blue and gray. I step onto the deck. The cold air stings my face. I breathe deeply. The iceberg, the storm, the hallucinations, they are gone. Or maybe they are only memories now. I look at the horizon. The sea stretches forever, silent and empty, and I whisper to it, I survived. You don't get me again. For the first time, I believe it. The beacon is dead. The ice has swallowed everything else. I am left with only myself, and that is enough. Weeks have passed since rescue. The warmth of civilization presses around me, but it doesn't reach inside. I sit in a small apartment. Windows open to a city that hums, alive with people I can barely recognize. Noise, movement, heat, all foreign. I taste coffee instead of snow, smell exhaust instead of ice. I should feel relief. I should feel life returning. Instead, I feel hollow. I keep the journal on the table beside me. I reread the last entries. The beacon, the ice, the storm, the faces in the ice. I wrote, I survived. I am alive. The ice cannot reach me anymore. The words feel thin here, distant, like they belong to someone else. A tea night. The hallucinations come back in fragments. Not full visions, just flickers. A shadow moving in the corner of the room. A whisper in the wind outside. My heartbeat echoes the old rhythm of the beacon. I wake drenched in sweat. Hands shake. I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The guilt is louder now, softer in tone but sharper in edge. They died. You lived. Why not them? I try to answer. I try logic. I survived because I didn't stop moving. Because I refused to let the ice win. Because I counted seconds when seconds were all that mattered. But the voice doesn't listen. The world doesn't understand. Friends ask how I feel. Colleagues ask how it was out there. Strangers ask what I saw. I can't tell them. Not the ice, not the wind, not the beacon. Not the way every step I took was a gamble with death. Not the way the hallucinations nearly pulled me under, even after rescue. So I nod. I smile. I say, I'm fine. And the words are lies. I go outside sometimes. The streets are wide, the noise overwhelming. People brush past me unaware. Cars roar. Dogs bark. The wind isn't the Arctic wind, but it touches my skin and reminds me. I count seconds again. Silently. 1, 2, 3. 100,000. I survive each moment the same way I survive the iceberg. By noticing every detail, every movement, every sound. By refusing to stop. Some nights I dream vividly. Ice, water, Moretti, Jenny, the beacon. But now I wake and remember the difference. I'm here.
I'm alive.
I survived. I write in the journal again. It's not about counting seconds this time. Not about survival. It's about memory. I carry them with me. I will not forget. I survived, yes, but I remember who did not. I carry their memory because that is all I can give them now. The pen scratches over the page. My hand doesn't shake as much. I see Dr. Jansen once a week. She doesn't lecture. She listens. She asks small questions. Slowly, I begin to say more. Not everything. Not the hallucinations. Not the moments I froze, staring at death. But some. I realize the iceberg is inside me now. It will never leave completely, but I can learn to live with it, to navigate life as if I'm walking on shifting ice. Careful, aware, cautious. I start leaving the apartment more often. I walk along the waterfront. The water is calm, blue and gray. Not the Arctic, but it reminds me of it anyway. I count my steps slowly. I feel the wind. I feel my heartbeat. The beacon inside me is quiet. Not gone, but quiet. I whisper to it, to the memory, to the ice that still exists somewhere in the Arctic. I am here. I survived. You cannot take me again. For the first time in weeks, I believe it fully. Life is slow, jagged, like ice edges. Some days I feel the weight of the storm, the cold, the guilt. Some days I feel hollow, watching people live lives I can barely touch. But some days I feel warmth. I feel the sun. I feel my pulse. I am alive. And that is enough.